Well, he was checking the trail cameras, and, we're all hovered around the Dell big screen computer.
Monitor.
It was in like the back laundry room area, right?
It was in the mud room.
Mud room, yeah.
Running like Windows 97. And he was going through the pictures, and we all seen it kind of at the same time. I'm just like, what is that? And I don't know how he came up. He came up with the name Freak Daddy or something.
All right, guys.
$3.
One day,
Same tree.
Same tree.
Oh my God. I'm so
Woo!
Holy shit! Get a shot of these.
2 farms this year. Number 1 is done.
Did you say bye, Kevin?
I did. I already did. Bye, Kevin.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye, Kevin. Bye, Kevin.
Smoked it, buddy. Look at that. You destroyed it.
Joey takes
The shop is closing up.
Make sure he takes all his right antlers.
All right, guys. We are here, Deer Shot Podcast, presented by Siman Brothers Outdoors and the Leaky John Boat Company. And we are talking about the biggest deer that any of us have ever seen, shot, and or killed. It's on the wall behind me here, Freak Daddy. Luke killed him December 6th?
Yeah.
December 6th, 2009. And we've never actually done a video or put the story out there. It was before we were recording a lot of video, kind of here and there a little bit, just kind of dabbling with it. I think we were more concerned with chasing girls at the time than making hunting videos, but it was the biggest deer that any of us have ever hunted. We got 3 new guests today. We got Ryan, Anthony, and Alex here with us, and they were heavily involved with this whole thing. They actually, they're the reason this whole story actually kind of started. It actually was more in their ball field than ours for a while, so it's going to be a good one. It's going to be fun. We'll try to keep it within an hour, hopefully, but there's a lot of stories here. Not a lot of overlay video. We got a lot of pictures, but this is all storytelling, and
it was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Not a lot of story watching, but basically this all began in the 2007 deer season, which was a long time ago, ancient history. But
Alex was still in high school.
I just graduated.
yeah, I still had a year left, and you guys were definitely both still in high school. How were you, Anthony, back then?
59.
All right, so 2007, when this started, there actually is a very, I would say, nonchalant beginning to the story. It wasn't like this deer was on anyone's radar. Back then, we were all running maybe 1 or 2 trail cameras. We had just kind of got into the digital trail camera age, if I remember correctly. So we got out of like 35 millimeter film, develop at Walmart cameras, and had bought these huge, they were massive, digital trail cameras. We each had like 1 or 2. I think I was only around 1 or 2. I don't know how many you guys
I just had one.
But
Yeah, were they take
Just the
C
one.
batteries, didn't they?
Yeah,
First?
they were C batteries.
Yeah, and they last like a couple weeks on batteries, if that. And the memory cards were just, I think your guys took like a special memory card, if I remember now correctly. Wasn't it like a huge one?
Yeah,
Like some
it
massive.
was. And I had to have a separate reader for it to plug
like
into the
it was
computer.
like a pita chip size. Like,
Yeah.
It's a little bit smaller than a floppy disk.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it was a different time. No cell cams, and cell phones weren't even that advanced. We had no iPhones or nothing back then.
No,
so
flip phone.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
we
really
all flip
hard. You couldn't
phones.
just like whip out your iPhone and take 4K video of something you saw on the side of the road. I mean, this is all word of mouth back then. But
Yeah, our self-facing cameras would have more megapixels than the
yeah,
ones that those
yep,
had.
Yep. And then you're just like trying to get video. It was rough, but we did a little bit of video back then, but it was definitely not in the heyday of our video. But so this story basically starts. I'm going to give the floor to Ryan on this one. Youth season 2007, back when we were just using Mossberg 500s and single shot shotguns and
Open
Carhartts and Walmart vests and
Open sight,
yeah,
20 gauge Mossberg 500 irons, and it was youth season, so this guy was not necessarily Freak Daddy yet.
Yeah,
So
that's the shed from that year. So
this was actually what I saw as he came running up from some antlers. We were rattling. He came running up the ridge, and he popped out on the top of the ridge about probably 50, 55 yards from me. And it was right on the top of a ravine, ridge, woods, and an enclosed field. And I started popping off a couple rounds, and
Yeah, as youth hunters do.
I had 5. I'll always remember I had 5 slugs in my sleeve on the stock of the shotgun. That's all I brought out. That's all you should need, you know. That should be too many shots. And I unloaded 3 at him, and he was just standing there unaware of, you know, where these shots are coming from. And I loaded up the last 2, and I took a shot, and I missed. And Anthony said, "Are you going to hit him?" And so I fired my last shot, and he dropped, and he was down, and he, you know, was on his side, just kind of putting his antlers in the ground. And I'm thinking, you know, I wasn't real sure, you know, what exactly had happened. And about 5 minutes go by, it probably felt like 15 or 20. And
just a kid slinging some lead.
yeah,
You know?
he stood himself up real slow and walked straight across the field down a valley. We ended
Did
up.
he walk on the field to the south or the north?
He went to, well,
The west.
it would be the
West.
west,
West.
that
That's
enclosed
right.
field
Not the
on
one.
the west.
Okay, so it wasn't the big field.
No.
Yeah, so he went walking across that, and it drops off pretty hard. You're down there by the river.
Yeah.
And you walk down, and, you know, I'm not feeling too good at this point about anything being successful. So
Would have been your biggest buck by far at that point, right?
Yeah, 100%. So we regroup, and we walk over there, and I don't even remember finding any blood or
No.
hair. And
We were just following tracks at that point from where he went down.
but there was another guy that was in the woods hunting with us who was watching him, you know, on the ground. He could see him, with, you know, with his antlers in the mud, kind of spinning for a few minutes. So make your best guess as you can to what happened that day. You know, we'll clearly never know, but something hit him, something put him down, and
It seems like with all our like deer that we really chase forever, there's always lots of these like, well, we hit them, but we don't know, you know, and it doesn't end up killing them on the first try. It's kind of what adds to the mystique of hunting these deer for year after year after year.
And for a time frame, I mean, I was 14 years old, so to say how excited I was to be shooting at a buck of, you know, that caliber at that time, you know, felt like a 200-inch deer.
Was that the year that you got picked for, was it Mosquito Creek for that youth hunt? Was that before?
No,
or
it was the year.
No,
that was the year before.
Yeah. So
I mean,
But that was the same year you shot the buck you did get behind the house,
no,
wasn't it?
No.
that was 2008. That was the next year. Because that's when, which I'm sure we'll lead into at some point, but following up into the next year, which we're kind of bypassing Pavlik. Somebody we know picking this one up.
you can say names.
You know, that's when he turned into Freak Daddy, when we had all those mature deer on camera that year.
That's why we were hunting so hard that when we both got our big bucks.
Yeah, which was a good year. But back to 2007, after Ryan had that encounter, I mean, I remember you telling me about it like that. You know, obviously, I don't even know if I don't know if I was allowed to text yet because I was still in high school. So we might have had to call each other for that, or like AIM or something.
You had like 500 messages for the whole month.
Yeah, like there was like
couldn't waste them.
Right. They had other purposes, but I remember you telling me about it, and then obviously nothing happened. We never saw him here on our farm that year. No trail camera pictures or nothing. And then a guy we know, like he said, Matt Pavlik, ended up finding that shed to the east of like where you guys were hunting, not very far to the east, and he nonchalantly picked it up, you know, good shed, and added it to his pile. He didn't know. I don't even think you guys. I mean, how much did you know Matt at that time? I didn't think you knew him that well. We obviously did, but not.
He was just, you know, the
A guy.
coolest cat in town. At
Yeah, but
the time,
we weren't hanging out with him a ton then because
No.
there was a large age gap.
She started playing cornhole over there
Probably about that time.
Yeah, right
the
about
next
that
year
time.
or so. But
Because there is a picture somewhere, and I'll be able to find if I really search, of Matt holding both of those sheds, and that's when we started putting the picture together, the pieces together. But for 2007 in the first year, that was it. Not much, a good deer encounter, but a shed, and we moved on until the summer of 2008, and that was when this whole story really started to take off. That antler to the right there that's in front of Alex is what he wore that year, and everything that took place with this deer and the name and the whole thing all started basically because of Anthony's trail camera that he had running behind the house. And I'll let you guys tell that story because I was kind of on the sideline for that one.
yeah, we were. Well, he was checking the trail cameras, and we're all hovered around the Dell big screen computer
Monitor.
It was in like the back laundry room area, right?
It was in the
mud
mudroom.
room.
Yeah.
Running like Windows 97. And he was going through the pictures, and we all seen it kind of at the same time. And we're just like, what is that? And I don't know how he came up. He came up with the name Freak Daddy or something. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know who came. Yeah, I have no idea.
Actually,
it came from our house. I know that, but I think he did.
I don't really know either way, but it stuck like right now. Like that it was like right
well,
now.
this is how long ago this was, because I thought Caleb thought of the names.
No,
Caleb.
I was on the sideline for this. I was like in awe. I didn't know for a little while till you spilled the beans.
Oh, go figure. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he came up with the name. It's something that he would come up with. But yeah, I just remember us always standing around the computer just looking at that big monitor.
I remember specifically, and you'll be able to see this if you're watching the YouTube version. It'll show all the pictures, but it was a white salt block. Like it was literally like a white, one of those white. They're only $5 now, so I can only imagine what they were then.
It was like $3.
Yeah, right.
They probably
Just
paid us
literally
to take it.
salt.
Yeah.
NaCl salt, but it worked at that time. I mean, guys, that summer, he wasn't the only deer that was worth anything on that camera. He was obviously the biggest one, but I remember 5 or 6 other deer that were obvious shooters all
crazy.
day.
Which I didn't realize another fella that hunts to the east over there shot another drop tine buck that we had on camera that year as well.
Yeah, but story for another day.
Yeah.
But so that summer, and I'll show some of the trail camera pictures on the video because they're wild. They're awesome. And the quality out of that camera was pretty good.
It was.
For what it was.
I mean, you could see the velvet hanging off of him at one point. And
Yeah, it was like hanging down to here.
It was awesome.
He had a couple feet of soybeans hanging off of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just awesome. And so to preface this too, it's not like you guys had this massive farm that you were running cameras all over on. This is a small piece of property.
Right.
And it's a little ridge top with the mineral lake surrounded by fields, and it's just kind of perfect for funneling deer. But yeah, so that summer, those pictures, that was something. I never saw him in velvet. Anthony, I think you said you saw him a couple times that year, just out and about doing stuff around your house.
Yeah, he was out across the open field. It was probably about 200 yards open field across, and he was on the tree line. And I mean, it was so a naked eye. I mean, it was just, he was so wide.
Yeah.
And that's why, really, when he turned, me and a friend of mine were splitting firewood, and he turned, we're just like, oh my God, look at that thing. And then that's when we got the pictures, shortly after that.
That was like the fun time before cell cams and text messaging and group chats and all that, where like if someone saw a deer and then you had to talk about it in person, and it was like a big deal, like, oh, so and so saw that buck here, and it was a huge deal at the time. Because now it's like, well, I know where his cameras are, and I know this, and I know that. It takes the fun out of it kind of a little bit.
In an hour, everyone knows about it.
Yeah, but back then it was like, oh, Anthony saw a giant deer across the field. And, oh, I wonder which one, because we had no idea at the time what was going on in real time, because cell cams were way, way out of the realm at that point. But
yeah, I just remember the big blue lettering
Yep.
for the time and everything and the date.
I mean, surprisingly good quality pictures out of those cameras.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
So that summer went, obviously all the sightings on the trail camera. Anthony saw him a couple times. I had never seen him on the hoof. And we did a lot of driving then. So we were doing a lot of road driving just like we do now, but we never saw him while we were road scouting at all. I don't remember seeing him. We never got any video of him. We were videotaping here and there, but the first actual on-stand encounter that I know of was mine, and it was on October 25th, 2008. We were hunting our farm here. I was in one of our back fields. I was just on the side of a field. It was just one of those perfect October mornings or October evenings, probably 40 to 50 degrees. The leaves were still kind of green, but it was, you could feel like the rut kind of kicking in. You could feel it. Just felt good. It was one of those days you like being in the woods. I was probably 10 feet off the ground at a really cheap tree stand. I was filming on tape. I was actually using, if I remember correctly, I was using Pavlik's dad's camcorder. Like it was a high 8. You actually had to put a tape in there and the whole 9 yards. and it was on some archaic tree arm that I bought. I might have even, I can't remember whose stand I was using because I was too poor to buy anything at the time. I was borrowing
Probably recorded over their family vacation.
Oh, something. I mean, it was, but I remember that night, and it's on video, and the quality's obviously not very good, but I'll be able to pull it up. A bunch of does came out first. It was one of those, the wind must have been great because I had a bunch of deer. I probably wasn't even paying attention to wind back then, but there was a bunch of deer in the field, and a bunch of does, big does, mature does, and there was no bucks. I'm just filming away and enjoying myself. And my spot that I was in was actually probably, like, looking back, it wasn't a very good spot. It's where the field narrowed out, but all the deer were coming out of the corner and spending their time in the main portion of the field, and I was just way on the sidelines, kind of being a spectator for most of it. And then he came out probably 45 minutes before last light. He came straight from the south right into the field, and it brings something up that I was thinking about while you guys were talking. Every time we saw this deer during hunting season, it seemed like he was doing some type of rutting. He was always moving, chasing does, coming to a rattling sequence, or he was never just a deer that was lazy out there hanging out, eating in a field. Every time we, all the stories that we're going to tell, including this one, he was on does that night. It was October 25th, so it's kind of early for them to be really dogging does, but this buck was chasing does back and forth across the field. I'm doing my best to try to videotape him. I was probably in a tree that was only this big around too, so like the video was real bad, but he left the field twice, and back then I didn't know anything. I'm panicking because this deer bigger than anything I've ever seen is in and out of this field. I knew what buck it was right away, and I was actually amazed that I was seeing him because we had never had him on our side of the township, but he was chasing does. He left, came back out, chased another doe, left, came back out, and at one point he chased a doe down real quick, and he got to 30 yards, and it was kind of like real thick, and I'm very amateur trying to videotape and grab my bow, and I do remember I grabbed my bow and had it full draw, but there was just no way I was shooting. He was only stopped for a couple seconds, and then he chased a doe into the woods, and then came back out, and eventually I think a doe caught me that night, because if you watch the whole video of the hunt, a bunch of the does kind of leave the field, and he didn't know what was happening, but they were kind of spooked, and then he followed him off, and then he took off to the south of the exact way he came, following this whole herd of does, and that was the only time that I ever saw him. Honestly, that encounter, 10/25/2008, was my only encounter. But obsession would be the word I think that comes to mind after that, because once you see deer like that, it's just it's out of control. Like and I didn't know anything about hunting back then. We're just putting tree stands up where we see deer and getting in there and not paying attention to the wind, not, cheap camo, not that it matters, but it was a struggle, but it was a lot of fun hunting a deer like that. And we spent a lot of time trying to get him, back on the farm again. But we, that day he, never got him on trail camera that day. We never, got him on trail camera again that year after that. I think Anthony had some encounters then during the season, or at least saw him throughout that fall.
Yeah.
Couple times.
Yeah, I seen him one time right off the garden, where the garden is, and on the edge of the field that they didn't end up planting that year.
Yeah.
So it was just weeds growing, and I caught a glimpse of him off the deck, and I walked over there, and he was eating on something browsing on something in the field. And when he saw or heard me, smelled me, whatever, he started going away, and all I could see was this going through the field. It's just I didn't even see the size of him. All I could see was the antlers like this going over the top of the weeds, just going through.
He just had you can see the shed there, and then obviously on this camera angle you can see the mount back here. His frame was just out of control.
That year he was wider. His right side, like how it is now, it wasn't like that that year. It was real wide and came out.
He had more points that year. So that 2008 season, he had more like tines and junk and stickers and points, and he kind of mellowed out. He had, I remember counting the pictures. We tried to between 21 and 23 points, because he had a little 1-inch drop tine and another bigger drop tine, and there was a bunch of points around his burrs.
You can see where something
tried
to grow or broke off.
Right.
But, and the brow tine too.
Yep, he chipped that. But then the year that Luke killed him, which we'll get to that obviously here in a little bit, but he dropped at least 10 points. He was more clean, just 13-pointer that year. But there was no other... Yeah, right, I know. So there's no other hunting encounters that year that I believe.
No, we were pretty limited to our spots that year, and there was a few other guys on some of the property that we could hunt that also hunted it. So it was pretty scarce of what we could do.
You guys did very good that year, though, on your little small property, though.
Yeah.
Like, you guys killed 2 bucks that are on the wall right now that year, not too far apart.
Fabric ground blind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I shot my 8-point 30 yards from where every picture we ever had of him that year was from.
That'll definitely, we'll be able to get those 2 mounts in here. We'll talk about that season specifically sometime. You guys can tell your 2 stories.
Well, I think that, like, the other thing, too, is just, this was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have no idea. I mean, other people could have had encounters that they could be sitting here talking to us about, but we'd have no way of knowing that.
Not a clue.
Yeah,
Not a clue.
probably
and we,
bird seed out of someone's backyard.
Oh yeah,
and we did not have the resources like we do now. Otherwise, I'm sure we would have a much better track record of where this deer was, because the amount of different sides of the road and township that this buck, has been seen on, whether it's trail cameras, hunting encounters, where he was killed.
I think there's more people hunting now, and there's more people that are obsessed running cell cams and stuff now than back then. This deer was able to achieve that size and that age because there was a lot of guys hunting, but like I said, 1 or 2 trail cameras. What they saw is what they knew was out there. It just seemed like the woods were a little bit less crowded back then overall. I mean, now it's just crazy now, obviously.
One person we probably should have asked about it, Andy Bishop, because he used to hunt pretty hard. We always see him in the woods when we used to hunt behind the house back there, and I'm sure he's definitely had some encounters. So
I talked to him last week at the fair, and he has told me. So at the end of this podcast, we'll go over some of the rumors we've heard over the years, and I'll tell his story. He told me some stories about the deer. He told me him actually a couple years ago, but I did see him last week and kind of go over it a little bit. But yeah, there was a lot of guys that had encounters, but like I said, back then, no good cell phone cameras. You weren't running cell cams. People weren't videotaping hunts like we are now. So there was just all like, oh, I saw a great buck, and
Yeah, the communication wasn't as easy as it is now.
And I talk to Andy 2 times a year and hear these stories. So like, a lot can happen outside of those. But so that year, I specifically remember, and I know we have debate on whether which antler it was. So you say when you saw him with one antler, it was that antler was on his head?
Yeah, I seen him crossing the field, heading away with this side on.
Sometime in January, so probably
I don't remember the date.
It was after you killed your buck, though, obviously.
Well, then...
So it had to be early February sometime.
Because it was January 26, 2009 when I shot it.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you saw him with one antler on. So we knew it was time to start shed hunting, and back then, I mean, I shed hunted a lot, but I didn't find nearly as many sheds as we find now. I mean, you can see the wall back there now, but like none of those sheds up there are from then. But somehow or another, on Valentine's Day, I stumbled across that antler right there, just outside of our property, on a neighbor's property that we were allowed to be on. And it was literally just laying on a trail. There was a muddy trail through a swampy area, and it was laying right in the middle of the trail. There's no way you could walk down it without stumbling on it, just laying there. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I just, you're looking down at that thing like, what is that?
Yeah, I remember.
And that just added to the story. And now it's like, we got to kill this deer. Someone has to kill this deer.
Well, this also goes back to, where we were at, how long ago this was, and not knowing, like, where this deer would have... We had nothing that said that you were going to find this where you found it.
Right. Yeah.
I found this 5 miles away.
I did find it in between where I saw him and your guys' property. So like where my encounter was and where your guys' property was, this shed was literally directly in between the two. But I mean, and that other antler, we searched for that other antler.
Oh yeah, we searched
high and low for years too. So not even that year, like the next year I was looking for that antler.
You're right.
The only thing I can think, I mean, there's a million places it could have been, and obviously no one that we know found it, so it could be sitting in some guy's shelf somewhere for all we know, but we don't know that it was found.
Down a creek or something.
Yes.
Carried away.
There was so it was like maybe 5 years after he dropped it, Spaniel did find a just a main beam. So it was just like a curled portion of a main beam that was like beer can sized in that back field on the corner of our property all the way up top in the back. He did find it had been run over by a plow and like it was all chewed up, but like he did find a big main beam. There's nothing to say it was that deer, but it's sickening to think that was that shed, that it was laying right there the whole time, and then we got ran over by the farmer. But no one ever found that shed to our knowledge. And then 2009 comes around, and I got my only trail camera picture that I ever got of him. I think it was like May 14th or May 17th.
It was right around Ethan's birthday, so
yeah, it was right
middle of May,
early May, and I'll be able to show the pictures on the video, but you can see them out behind me. He had his brow tines and his kickers and his main beams already in May, and that's just, he was so far advanced for May that I couldn't believe it. Every other buck was just nubs, maybe 4 or 5 inches of antler at the most, but most deer were just nubs. There were some deer that still had their antlers on their head, and he was already at his ears and had 8-inch brow tines, and obviously, and it was in the same field where I had my encounter the October before that. But after that, I never got another trail camera picture. You guys never got a trail camera picture that year. I mean, nothing. He kind of disappeared from our radar.
Yeah,
that entire summer. Like, he was just gone. You guys were running cameras in the same places. I ran a camera in that spot where I got a picture of him all year, and just nothing happened. We found out later, to our east, there's a family that we became friends with. Their dad had a bunch of trail camera pictures of him and in velvet. So I think I remember like seeing like 1 or 2 in velvet and 1 or 2 not in velvet. And they were just like pictures of a picture sent to me years later. After, I think it was right when you killed him is when they sent it, somewhere around that time. But so he might have shifted his summer range to the east a little bit, which is kind of weird, but I mean, I'm sure he was still kind of feeding in the same area, like around where your guys' property is. We just, he just wasn't visiting that lick for whatever reason, or when he did, the camera was dead, or whatever. But no one in our main group had any pictures of him that year.
I do believe there is a story from Joe about him having a hunting encounter with him that season.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember the story, you can kind of paraphrase it.
I don't want to paraphrase because I don't want to incorrectly.
I'm sure at some point he'll be here on the podcast.
Yeah, but I'm almost positive that he had one encounter with him where. Yeah,
I mean, I don't doubt it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I talked to him at the fair this year too a little bit. He came over and was looking at all the deer, like, oh, I recognize that one. I recognize that one. So at some point, I'm sure he'll come. We'll get him in here to talk about some of these stories. But yeah, that summer he was just gone. We knew he was alive, but no one got any trail camera pictures, and the whole summer went by until the rut. And the rut rolled around, and you and Jay both had an encounter on the same day here on our farm. Jay's not involved in this podcast, but I do have video of Jay talking about his encounter, so I'll splice that in right around now. And he can
I think Ryan was hunting up front in the pines towards the pond a little bit. I was a little deeper back, and I decided to move a ridge over, I think, from where I killed the doe.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I don't remember, wind or whatever. And I was facing west, I believe, and I think it was probably maybe 100, 150 yards tops where there was a ridge that ran north-south.
Yeah.
And heard some commotion. I looked, and I saw a good deer, kind of classic pre-rut, nose to the ground, tail out, just at that trot. And I'm like, oh man, that looks like a really good deer. So I gave a grunt, and he stopped. He picked his head up, and he gave me a good show by looking my direction for maybe, the 5-8 seconds that they normally do, and went right. He must have been on a hot doe, nose right back to the ground, and kept going. And it was probably a 15-second encounter altogether. But I saw 3/4 of them, and it was an amazing experience. It was at that time the biggest deer I'd ever seen on the hoof, and it's been a long time. But the last time I hunted Iowa, there might be one I've seen bigger. But
I'm gonna say no. You might go. Obviously, Iowa is the right.
And then we can get to your version of it because you were there, obviously.
Right. I would say Jay's encounter potentially was more involved than mine.
I think they were both. I mean, he just caught glimpses.
Mine was kind of late as he was on the south of where I was hunting, on the other side of a ravine, maybe 80, 90 yards, and he was on a quick run to the east. And I mean, it was pretty evident when you see a deer like that, and you're familiar with what you're hunting and what we're looking at, that I saw Freak Daddy. And we had not seen him. We weren't aware of him. We haven't had a picture of him since May. We haven't seen him in over a year at this point from a hunting encounter.
Yeah.
And, them 5, 6, 7 seconds that he went running across that ridge before he, left my eyesight.
Were you hunting Anthony's stand?
I don't believe so, because I was on the farther southeast side of the farm.
Because I thought you might have been in where Anthony had his stand in the pine trees there. I can't remember.
Maybe I was in that tree
because Jay
stand.
was farther down, like towards where I found the shed, kind of. He was closer to where I found the shed.
If we did this podcast 10 years ago, I'd probably remember.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 10 years and
I remember
10,000 beers ago.
Yeah, I remember watching on that side of the valley. But, I came in pretty shook. We all came back and started talking about the hunt. And, sure as shit, the other guy that's sitting in the same side of the woods as me.
Yeah.
Got to have the same encounter, so we both understood the caliber of deer that we saw. We were pretty sure who we saw, and we were pretty excited about it.
Yeah. And then December 6th, right? Was it 6th or 5th? I think it was the 5th. Somewhere around there.
I don't know for sure.
All I know is that it was Sunday of deer season 2009.
Yeah.
I was sleeping. I think we'd probably partied the night before. I'm assuming we partied the night before.
It's a possibility.
And I was watching football at Mom and Dad's. I was laying on a recliner, just done. I was like not involved with hunting whatsoever that day. Because it was warm and it was Sunday.
I remember it being
was warm.
Very warm that day for some reason. Like it was hot. Like it wasn't just like 40 degrees. It was like 50 or 60 degrees. It's not a good day to go deer hunting, really. But it was the last day of gun season. And I wasn't old enough to... I don't think I bow hunted that year.
You probably weren't even pulling a bow back at that time.
Yeah, I think the next year was like the first year I started bow hunting. But like I was just dragging Dad out every chance I got. Me and Ethan and Isaac, and just we were doing all sorts of hunting all year, like all gun season. And I was like, last day we gotta go, and I go out, and it's like the craziest hunt ever.
You were going to one of my stands, I remember specifically.
Yeah.
And I think it was a stand. It might have been the stand you were in. Now that I'm thinking about the corner of that field, like in that corner.
Well, leading up to it, it was one of those things where, your last day of gun season, you're kind of burnt out. It's a warm day, but it's one of those things where if you're not out there, you can't get them. So I think it was about halftime during football, and we had a couple hours left, and we started getting into motions and starting making sure we're doing what we got to do. And Luke and his dad and Isaac started heading out. And I was a little bit delayed behind him. I was getting in my car to head back to my house and go hunt something on the other side of town. And I heard the shots that Luke fired off. And I remember actually walking to my car, good old Grand Am, and saying out loud, "I bet Luke just shot a doe." And
yeah,
so,
I think I remember hearing the shots too, because you weren't far. I mean, you were
from
where we're sitting
right
now,
by the house.
What, 150, 200 yards from where we're actually sitting now, and then obviously Mom and Dad's a couple hundred yards down. But
so I get in the car and I drive a mile down the road. I start putting on some gear, and my phone, it's showing downloading image, because that's what old flip phones used to do. Yeah. There was actually a bar.
It was like a 10-minute time period.
It was an exciting thing when your flip phone was downloading an image, just so you know.
So I flipped it open and saw a very granular photo of what was sure to be the deer that... this deer.
Yeah.
And I called Isaac, and I'll never forget his squeaky voice. "It's him! It's him!"
Yeah.
And so I quickly forgot about the hunt that I was just about to get out in the woods for, and drove about 106 miles an hour back the mile. You know what's something that will always impress me about this story is I live a mile away, and I just got the information, and I pull up, and our friend Dylan's brother Donnie, who lives on the other side of town about 20 minutes away, had already made his way to the lake. Donnie was already there.
Spaniel did too.
Yeah, I pulled up there. I couldn't believe anyone was there. There was 10 vehicles and 100 people all hugging Luke.
Had bad service. Got the picture late.
The irony of just thinking Luke was walking out there firing off at a doe. in the middle of gun season.
And
Or
walking
last
to your
day of gun
stand.
season.
What time was it, you think?
It was 2.
Yeah, it was
2:13 or like
halftime-ish.
2:15 or 2:30, something like that. I remember like it was in between 2 and 2:30.
Yeah.
So it was
What time
kind
do
of
you go to woods
kind of
now?
early
After lunch. What time you go to the woods now after lunch?
for gun season.
Never.
Oh,
We're deer driving by that point. We're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even.
yeah.
We're not even. It's Sunday of gun season. We're not even
Gun
doing
season,
this
bow
stuff.
season, whichever.
I'm usually duck hunting during.
I mean, the story's pretty
all the
simple.
important stuff.
You just simply walked up on him bedded.
Yeah, it's the
I
craziest thing that I've
there's
never.
No, unfortunately, there's no like, oh, I rattled him or I watched him come across a field or all this. Like, nope, he walked up on him bedded on his way to his stand, and the deer just got cornered.
Yeah, the deer.
He just got cornered.
I was walking to the tree stand, and I look over from the side of the trail, and there's like a little bedding area, which we assumed was a bedding area. We didn't know.
There's been some
anything.
sheds found in there. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lot. It's got a good view of the houses and the roads, and there's 3 You can see 3 cabins from where that is.
Yeah,
and
it's just like the littlest spot, and I just look over, and like that deer's just standing 5 feet away from me.
5 feet,
Like
5 feet, guys.
Like
5 feet.
Those guys across the camera from me
From
are
where he is
farther
right
away
now from you.
Yeah.
than that deer was from me, and like I just shot 3 times as fast as I could with my dad's Mossberg 500. I didn't even take my 20 gauge.
Yeah,
'cause
that
I
would
wanted
have
to
been,
take
if
the
you would
12
have taken
gauge.
your 20 gauge, it could have been disaster.
Different.
You would have to at
Could've
least
been.
aim. But
Yeah,
So I will say, I mean, at this moment in time, in between him shooting and texts and calls firing off and people gathering together for the moment, I mean, there's a lot of emotions, and I would say our family was probably be the most emotionally attached to that deer outside of potentially the Simons, and to be able to have someone that I consider a brother of mine be able to harvest that deer and us be able to come together and live through that together was probably one of the coolest things that we'll ever talk about hunting.
the cool thing is, it was back when you had to go and get it checked in at a tag station. Like,
so we
that-
took it.
Had to take
was-
it.
We took it all the way to the fin.
Yeah, because they had so the Fin Feather Fur held a contest every year.
Yep.
I don't know if it was like coolest picture, biggest buck, or you just like vote on the big buck or whatever. But you did win, right?
I won.
You
Yeah.
won a gun in that.
I won a gift card,
A gift card that
and
you
then
used
Dad
for a
bought
gun.
another Mossberg 500 with it.
We're just piling up the Mossberg.
So we got a bunch of
500s.
Mossberg 500s.
I killed a lot of deer with a Mossberg.
Oh yeah.
500.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
A lot.
But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty fun time. I do remember just everything about it was fun.
You
It's-
think he
it's still-
watched you the whole way, like coming all the way? Or
I
how
bet-
long do you think he watched you
He
for?
probably saw me for 100
as soon
yards
as you
at
walked
least.
out of the house.
I mean, as soon as I crested the hill at the lake, which is like halfway to the tree stand, so he had to have gotten up or at least watched me walk for quite a while, for probably a couple minutes.
It makes you think how many times he hung tight in that. Like, so let's just say he used that bedding area in the past. I mean, how many times have we walked by there or been up at the lake screwing around, and he just sat in that bedding area and just watched
it.
us? Because he
Yeah.
could watch the lake, and
Yeah, he
I mean,
knew.
he could
when
watch
you
the
knew.
lake, he could
and
watch
we
the
spent
road.
a lot of time at the lake back then. It was more than we do now. And yeah, I mean, he was bedded right there. Crazy.
It was really cool to put, a stamp on the final chapter of
Yeah.
that buck, without
Yeah, that was a good
no one
ending.
would have harvested that deer, or no one would have found that set of sheds, or it just kind of would have been something that went to the unknown, and I don't think any of us would have been able to sleep at night knowing what
Right.
happened to that deer, but we don't have to worry about
Yeah,
that.
or some city guy came in and shot it.
That's been happening too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
more
a podcast-
more recent.
That's a
now.
podcast for another day. But we could definitely talk about that at some point.
That
But
wasn't really much of a thing then, though.
no, there was no outfitters then. That's for sure. Now,
No one was leasing land. It's
leasing
all
and outfitters.
People that knew people.
Well, there's a lot of talk about how like a deer like this is the reason why there's leasing and outfitters now.
Right.
Something like this gets killed, and I had to look it up because it has shifted in the rankings. At one point, it was like the 7th biggest deer in Medina County, but I think it's like 12th or 13th
Yeah.
now, 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. There's been some big ones killed since. That's with Buckeye Big Buck Club, so it's ambiguous, the other scoring systems. I don't think there's a way to look up on the other scoring systems where it ranks per county in each state, but for our county in Ohio, it was top 10. Now it's just outside the top 10, which is, awesome. But I mean, there was and once you killed him, this last section of the podcast I wanted to go over, like once you killed him, the rumor mill started going. So you killed him, rumors started flying everywhere. There was a lot of guys that said they saw him, that they shot at him. Andy Bishop's story was that he saw him. I think Andy had already tagged out. So I think Andy's story, if I get my guys correct, Andy's story was that he had already shot a buck that year, and he was just out during either late archery or during gun season hunting, and Freak Daddy came by within range and bedded down a couple different times in front of him, and he was tagged out. He already had a buck, so he couldn't shoot him. And that was laying in front of him, however many yards away, and he was unable to take a shot. There were some other guys that I know had said that they had at least shot at him.
Yeah, and stories come out more.
Yeah.
We start hearing, we run into someone, and they say, oh, I shot at that buck or saw it. And
yeah, and, without videoing hunts and without trail cameras and good cell phones anymore, for someone to say they saw that buck and shot at him back then, I mean...
Yeah, it's hard to say. Time
Take it with a
frames
grain
and
of salt.
everything.
Because there was other deer running around at that time with drop tines and big, that was back when there was actually really big deer all over the place.
Yeah.
And he was, I would like to say that this is the biggest deer that we ever chased over there and in this area, but I'm pretty sure there were some bigger deer in that area over the years that we saw at a distance in the field, summer feeding. I mean, there were some giant deer back
time
then.
frame was
Out of control.
Like a couple years before, they really just turned on, because 5 years before that, you were lucky to see a deer.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there was that big boom. And I remember there was some, we did some velvet. We would drive around in the summertime and just videotape out of the back of the truck every single night.
Yeah.
And there was some really, really big deer back then that we never, got on trail camera or saw while hunting because they lived maybe a mile this way or a mile that way. But there was a lot of huge deer back then.
Yeah, it basically went from like West Virginia bucks to Iowa bucks.
Yeah. And then back to like, we're like at Ohio bucks now. Like, it's not bad now. It's still good, but 2007 through 2012 or 13, basically, I mean, he died in 2017, Hook did. That was the end of like the really big ones. That was the last giant buck that we had around here. But
Yeah.
that area, 2007 to 2009, man, ton of bucks. Good ones.
Yeah, I think it started probably about, 2005, 2004 maybe. They started growing.
Yeah. And, maybe that was, part of it might be, we can take a deep dive into what we think, but part of it might be the fact that we just started getting the ability to have better trail cameras to put out and spend a little time looking at the fields. Like, those bucks might have been there before, but when you only get 30 pictures on a roll of film and raccoons are 27.
Well,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
he was shooting them though.
That's
So,
true. That's true.
Yeah.
We
And
have,
I
we
know
have like a time lapse of deer racks in his gun room. Like
that's true.
that one buck that you got mounted was
small.
Yeah, it was like basket 6. But was that like your first buck or?
Yeah.
I mean, my dad's biggest deer was like a 7-point from back in the
But then
when
he's
he
got
was
a-
hunting in the 90s. Like
He's got a couple 9 points that were.
yeah,
They just kept getting a little bit bigger every year from then on, and
that time
Big bodied
though,
deer, too. They were
Yeah.
big bodied deer.
I don't know. Maybe that's a debate for another day on why all of a sudden there was just giants.
well, the
crops
regulations were different. When I started hunting when I was 9, you could only shoot bucks, so
Yeah.
everything.
yeah, and that
All
was
the
right.
regulations completely changed since then.
It's weird. You couldn't shoot does back then, and then they allowed the shooting of does, so the bucks started getting bigger because more people were shooting does for meat. It seems like there's a lot more guys now that don't shoot does at all, just because they only want to eat one deer. If they get one deer turned into jerky and it costs them $500 and they're done for the year, so they only shoot
they
a
don't
buck.
even eat it
Right,
like as real meat.
The cost of the processing is
Yeah,
what's
they
hurting us
get
right
all
now.
jerky and beef sticks.
Yeah.
and trail blown.
So they're not going to shoot 3 does, because they don't want to pay for it. And
Yeah.
they don't want to waste it.
Well,
so
not a lot of people buy quarter cow or half
Yeah.
a cow and quarter pig, half pig, whole
Yeah.
pig. So they might have a lot of meat in their freezers already. So,
yeah,
or the wives might not like to eat the deer meat because it's
they need to learn how to cook.
their pet.
They need to learn how to cook. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now we're dealing with a lot of stuff that makes the deer not get to that size. I mean, your guys' neighbor killed, 26 deer last year, or 25 deer, 25 bucks, because he's
Was
a
it 25?
giant outfit. It was
Yeah.
like
Done like
25 or
10
27.
More than you can count.
Yeah, they're
Let's just say the amount of them that were mature.
Maybe 1, maybe 2.
That number
I don't
is
know
very
if
low.
I don't know if he listens to our podcast, but I'll find out now.
I'm sure he'll listen to this one.
I'll find out now if he does.
We'll
But
know.
yeah, so there's an outfitter now that
Well, then maybe he might start feeling some pressure to do things the right way.
No.
allowed 20 plus bucks to be killed last year in our area, and only out of the ones maybe he didn't post them all on the internet, but if I'm an outfitter, I'm going to post my biggest bucks on the internet. There was maybe 2 over 130. The rest, all 20 plus, were under 130 inches.
Stipulation was supposed to be 8-point or bigger and a decent size 8-point.
That was
from what I was told.
Not anymore.
That factually did not happen because I seen the bucks that were posted. And
Well, ground shrinkage is a real thing.
Yeah, from a ground blind.
There's nothing illegal about it, so we can't really say anything. But
No.
when your neighbor's killing 20 plus bucks and 20 plus of those bucks are under 130 inches, it's kind of hard to grow deer like that again. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it does to the population around there.
yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, right now this year, without giving too much away, like we're pretty good. Like I'm pretty happy with what's on camera and what we've been seeing in Velvet. So maybe it's forcing the deer off of that property for the most part.
Yeah, because he's back there doing stuff all the time, moving stands, and
Yeah,
at least
we're-
from what you see on Facebook and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, this is all public.
To where they're never had that pressure before.
Yeah, I guess that was something that wasn't talked about. This farm that was by you guys, and we're giving away a lot right now, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because you can pay $1,750 a hunt if you want,
or more,
or more.
depending on the day.
For probably 10 years, you'd say 15 years, had zero hunting pressure.
Probably
more than that.
30s.
Probably longer than that.
Maybe even longer.
Well, this
zero hunting pressure, and that's what
almost
allowed
1,000
some
acres
things.
too, right?
Deer like that was running around that area. That was running around that area. And it just allowed some deer to get to age. And lately that hasn't been happening here because a lot of deer are getting killed at a very young age because people are paying $1,750 and making. He justifies it by saying he's making memories amongst families.
Yeah.
And
Well,
stuff.
plus
and
we
I get that, but it doesn't help the locals.
There's
at all.
circumstances
Yeah.
that make sense.
Yeah.
Not
Plus
when
we
you're-
had
not
other-
when you're an outfitter.
Plus, we had other hunters that were killing anything. If it was brown, it was down.
Yeah.
Right after, during the Freak Daddy breeding time,
Yep.
where how many button bucks got
taken
out that
his offspring.
could have been his
guilty of
offspring.
killing a
No,
couple.
I shot one myself.
Yeah.
then, so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, guilty. Of
Actually,
killing
I
a
think
couple
me,
of those,
Caleb,
but-
and Chad did it on the same day last
and
year.
and it wasn't done maliciously, but sometimes in late season you just shoot a deer and you walk. You killed a button buck at our property last year.
That's
by
what
the
I
way,
said. I think me, you, and Chad did it on the same day.
we did, but mine weren't from here. But it was accidental. But
It was
Yeah,
miscommunication.
most of my button bucks were down south.
I had a spotter, and my button buck still ended up being a button buck.
Yeah.
He swore it was not a button buck.
Technically, you were my spotter too, but
Yeah, yeah. Technically, I was.
There was a
you
big
know, I was.
button
I
buck
was
shot.
47
Was it
miles
last
away.
year or
but-
the year before?
Oh yeah, that was
That
2
real
years
big
ago.
button buck.
The shed
yeah,
buck.
Nick Schlau shot this giant doe.
I wasn't gonna say.
I'll say it. Shot a giant doe that had holes on his head this big. Because he had already shed his antlers. So who knows what deer that wasn't here either though. So
Yeah,
we're lucky there. But
way it goes.
yeah, I mean, we're at 46 minutes, so we can kind of wrap this one up if you guys want. If there's any final thoughts on this particular deer, or if there's any, I've already decided I want to do a podcast on your guys' 2 bucks from 2008 because it was just perfect. How many acres is it over there?
3.
3 acres, and they killed 230 plus inch bucks within a month of each other. It's pretty cool.
I have to get the sheets out too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Your track job was the first fun track job.
Oh, that
ever.
was the best.
That kind of I think
That's
part
what
of my
really-
life was influenced by that night.
Yeah.
Like honestly, we decided let's just grab beers and flashlights, and Alex thinks he killed this buck.
Yeah, no one believed me.
And we just decided to go out in the snow and track this buck, and it was just awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And we've been doing it ever since. We've done it. We do it for does now. That's a doe. Who cares? Let's grab some beers.
Right.
Some lights. Let's just go in the woods at night because that's fun. But
Yeah.
that track job
Hanging
was
out.
awesome. It was awesome. I wish I was video. We took a lot of pictures, but there's no video. I wish it's a shame we didn't have video
Yeah.
that night.
thank God I did not have a track job on mine because
Yeah,
nearby.
yeah.
We'll save those
Here.
details for
Yeah,
that podcast.
there'll be a podcast of the twin 8 points, but because those deer, we're just rambling now, but it's okay. Those deer I had on camera, so I didn't have a ton of the bucks you guys had on camera that year, but I had those two, kind of regular in the summertime, and then you guys killed them on your property. I don't know how far away you guys technically are, a mile, 3/4 of a mile.
Can't be more than a mile.
Yeah.
Mile-ish, but
Wow,
As the bird flies.
Yeah.
Crow flies.
Crow flies.
crow flies, yeah.
Amateur podcast.
Or drone.
Yeah.
You've flown your drone over here before, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to take some B-roll with your drone, by the way. Any video you can would be great to have.
Yeah, I need to fly it anyway.
Yeah,
so.
just for fun. Just go out and fly around.
I'd say my biggest...
Fly around the outfitter's property. He can't stop you. Just go down there and just check it out.
see big yellow spots. What's that?
My biggest curiosity about Freak Daddy, though, would have been just what was his home basis. Because
Well,
It changed.
so, that's
it just seemed ever revolving.
it's a perfect segue. So we thought we knew what we knew, and, there was rumor. Speaking of rumors, there were some guys that were hunting, and we don't know them very well, but they were hunting to the west of you guys, down off of like the next road over. They said they saw them all the time for a couple years. Like they would do deer. They're not bow hunters, so they're gun hunters. So every gun season they'd be doing deer drives, and they said they'd push them out every year in that area. And
So that'd be relatively close to where I shot him.
yes, the first. Yep. So who knows? But ironically, we have a deer on camera now. So there's this deer that we had on trail camera here at our farm a week ago. And it's a very distinctive deer. He's got split G3s, like dual split G3s. So it's a very obvious deer. We got him on camera here. Our buddy got him on camera a little over a mile away like a week ago. And then last night, Ethan videotaped him from his truck 2.76 miles away. In the summer. We're talking in the summertime, this buck is feeding in a bean field. Almost 3 miles away from where we were getting trail camera pictures of him. So, I mean, to assume we know anything about what these deer are doing in their range and their home is just asinine. Because something like that happens and it throws a monkey wrench in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see a deer 3 miles away, it gives you a possibility you could shoot it here or wherever,
Yeah. Well, it's like that 10-point last year. It was all the way at his
Oh,
house.
yeah.
It came all the way to my spot. And
Ryan was watching that 10-point while he was getting dressed in the morning and drinking his coffee before work every day. And then you were
Eating out of
getting him
my garden.
Yeah, you were getting him on camera. How many miles away?
I think it was like
2.5.
Well, straight is like 1.3, 1.5, but there's about 400 houses in between.
Yeah. So that's another thing. 400 houses, but how many hunters? Corn piles, food piles,
Just as many.
tree stands.
Cassock was in between us.
Yeah.
And
So Alex is devoting his life to try to kill this buck, and Ryan's just watching him while he brushes his teeth.
yeah,
Same
I
time
got a little
frame.
free
Same
line
time.
I could hunt.
Which, by the way, he's back this year. I already got him.
It's just crazy. To think that we're going to run 3 miles is exhausting, but I don't think it matters to a deer at all.
You're just walking.
The 3 mile. So when we go on our out of state hunts, 3 miles is nothing. You drive for 4 minutes down a gravel road. You went 3 miles.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like you've gone that far
What
because
can
you're
you-
in these
you can
big
walk
woods.
a mile in 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Not
but
even
here
trying.
the problem with here is when you drive for 15 to 20 minutes or you drive 3 miles, you pass 20 guys that are hunting.
Yeah,
know,
they got a
like-
elevated blind off the
Right.
back of their playhouse.
So you
and
got to think that
feeder in
deer,
there.
that deer is moving through all those guys' setups at some point during the day or night, every year, every day. Like, man, what a daunting task! And somehow you ended up killing that deer.
Yeah, in the most unexpected way.
Right.
It's not like it was not textbook at all.
You
No.
can do everything you want to do, but there's still going to be a little bit of luck.
Yep.
Luck, I think, plays the biggest factor in all this. To tell you the truth,
Just
Right place, right time.
yeah. Well, I guess that's about all we got for this one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty satisfied with it. 52 minutes. We finally were able to put something together for Freak Daddy. I never made a film.
Yeah.
The encounter that I had and some stuff has been in some other films, pieces and parts, but we never did a definitive thing on Freak Daddy. But this ended up being the best way, I think, to talk about it. So
Yeah, with not a lot of actual
Yeah.
roll of it. It's
Right.
more pictures than anything.
it would have been a struggle to try
I
to
think
put
this would
something
be-
together.
Play over top of all the pictures would probably be the best way to do it.
Yep.
Or a good way to add to it.
I agree. So that's that. Thank you guys for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you. Your wife doesn't think you're going to be on this podcast a lot, but we're going to have you guys on plenty, I'm sure.
We need a Snapchat of this right now. So.
I already sent her, so I sent her a Snapchat. I sent her a Snapchat of the setup earlier, and I got no reply. So.
I'm just throwing it out
she
there.
She knew what I was doing.
I'm just throwing it out there. The name of my podcast, I will have my own featured podcast this year. It's going to be called The Redemption Podcast, and it's going to be called Fuck Nick Schlau.
Yeah,
subtitle.
So we're allowed to say fuck after the 15-minute mark, and we went all the way to 53 minutes without saying fuck, so we did okay.
Then I'll double.
You told Nick Schlau
being very fucking professional.
Yeah, so you told Nick Schlau 130 inches or bust last year, and you shot 107.
Well,
inch
no,
buck, and he has reminded you of it.
I don't think I actually
since.
guaranteed a size last year for the buck I may or may not harvest. I said that it had a ceiling, or I'm sorry, a floor of 120 inches, and I was off by a hair.
A lot, and then
let's call it a hair.
And it wouldn't have mattered at all if he didn't kill a 143 on like the last day of the season. So.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah, he was this, but you shot yours with a real bow at least.
Yeah, I shot 2 bucks with a bow last year. Technically.
All right, Deer Shot
Both legal.
Podcast is going to be out on that one. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy the story of the biggest deer that we ever seen, hunted, heard about, had in the area, or anything. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Thanks.
It goes fast. Weird.
This thing was just ramming the beat on the top of my head.
Yeah, they're doing it without a hat on.